Halo has been around for a long time. It's pretty crazy when you think about how much started just from one video game. It has a large fan base and community, but in recent years, and especially in the last few months, Halo has been in a downwards spiral after the launch of Halo Infinite. The TV show has as many good moments as I've had girlfriends, which, shock surprise, isn't a high number. And if you go to Twitter, Reddit, or even YouTube comments, you're almost stepping into a war zone sometimes because the community is pretty savagely attacking itself sometimes. Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Kiv, your favorite degenerate, and today I wanted to go through the current state of Halo and its community, talking about a few key points in a comprehensive way. So I will, with some help, go through the developers, 343 Industries, Halo Infinite itself, the TV show, and the Halo community. This is a lot to cover, so I am going to have timestamps in the video to make sure it's all easy to navigate to what you're interested in. And it was a pretty decent project to try to cover this much, so I did have to call in some help from a couple of god-tier Aussie Halo YouTubers, so I'll let them do their thing in a bit. But let's start off with the state of 343 Industries, the people in charge of Halo. In the gaming industry, getting a good job is pretty goddamn hard. A lot of people are really passionate about games, and it has a really good flow of people coming into the industry. Unfortunately, the sad reality is that this is not a good environment for a lot of people. You end up with very bad hours, having to do shit tons of overtime with no extra pay, because if you work for a major developer studio, the crunch, as it's known in the industry, is basically an expectation. And if you don't do that and you don't meet the deadlines, then they won't want you to work at that company. So you end up with this terrible cycle of people being hired to finish a game, do all this hard work, and then when the game's out, there's no more work to be done, and they just end up being let go. It's a brutal system and it sucks, but that is apparently what a lot of major development studios are like. Apparently, this is one of the reasons why a lot of developers actually hire contractors instead of employees for this level of work. And some of you may be sitting there saying, yeah, Kiv, what are you on about? This is Microsoft we're talking about. They have infinitely deep pockets, if you'll excuse the pun. So they can pay for employees, right? No. Unfortunately, the reality is that 343 is notorious for having a huge contractor workforce, so this ends up being a big problem when you consider long-term game development. This matters for Halo because when you have a unique game engine like how Halo does, you have to teach people how to use it in the first place. So you have to go through a period of integrating them into your team, showing them the ropes, and if something doesn't work or go according to plan, that contractor can just run away at the end when their contract is finished, saying, well, it's not my problem anymore. But unfortunately, the bad news gets even worse. You see, what you may not know is that Microsoft has a separate rule when it comes to contractors. They can't work for more than 18 months at a time. So basically, after they have finished their 18 months of work, they have to take a mandatory 6-month break, and this is supposedly there to avoid these contractors being overworked and abused in their roles, but it ends up being a terrible idea for long-term development because a game like Infinite, it takes many years to plan, develop, and make the entire game, so you end up with lots of members leaving at crucial times. That's just a recipe for disaster. it's hard to get an accurate idea of what things are like behind the scenes because a lot of people in the gaming industry are afraid of being blacklisted for speaking out and won't be able to find work at a big studio, so you don't usually see a lot of people voicing complaints. But I was able to find some interesting info. Many worker reviews on anonymous websites show that 343 has a lack of management and an environment full of technical debt, which does all make a lot of sense. All of this just comes together and ends up making some people not care about what they're creating because they won't be there in the end to celebrate any potential success. And if they do care, then it can lead to burnout from being overworked on picking up other contractors' work that wasn't completed. So in the end, no matter what, the game suffers. One thing that 343 has actually managed to do very well is not have as much of a crunch in Halo Infinite, which is great for the team that makes the games that we love as a franchise. But it leaves a bad taste in the mouth of the consumers when your game is so far behind schedule, because Infinite is progressing slower than a turtle with ankle weights. Updates are infrequent and far between. So, what actually is the state of Halo Infinite?
So Kiv reached out to me asking me to contribute to his video. Who am I to say no? If we're to talk about the state of the Halo community, the state of the game itself is the most obvious and most important feature to be discussed. You can talk about how the Halo community is driving people away or whatever, but the quality of the game itself is what it all ultimately hinges on to a significant degree. And with the very poor offering from Season 2, it's obvious why Infinite is a game nobody really wants to play. 343 is out of touch. Well, somebody there is. They don't know what Halo fans want and haven't really for their over 10 years of running the game into the ground. Halo has turned into kind of an irrelevant niche shooter under their watch. That's not to say it still doesn't sell millions of copies, but it's not really mainstream at all. I'll be honest, Infinite showed many signs of healing. The game is fun to play. Watch literally any review on it. They've reduced the presence of features that don't work in Halo, like sprint, aim down sights, loadouts. The marketing showed that, well, their marketing team had an idea of what we want. In 2018, Halo fans had such low expectations that a canned cinematic with classic visuals and musical motifs got us excited. What we saw in the reveals was a huge open world populated with creatures. There was an idea that was going back to the very classic original Halo 1 vision, that was going to feel like a huge lived-in world. The marketing also stressed a return to form for Halo multiplayer, that it'd be so pro-consumer and that they'd be able to use this live service model to give us a ton of content for the game. But even before launch, if you're reading between the lines, that we could see the issues coming then. We could see all the red flags from a mile away, even when people were defending it. We knew what the armor core system was going to be like, what the battle pass system was going to be like. In a sense, what we actually got was a campaign that was still fairly expansive and quite good in terms of gameplay. It was still fairly limited in terms of, say, the amount of environments you could go to and the amount of creatures in the open world, things like that. It's far less dynamic than perhaps we might have expected. The multiplayer was also disappointing. The whole point of a live service is that you can get content out as soon as possible, but we've had less new content added than any previous Halo game since Halo 2. Only 2 new maps after 6 months. Even if we account for crunch, there are other studios that focus on employee health and doing away with crunch culture that are still able to produce content on a regular basis, according with their promises to the community. So I'm just going to kind of list what we don't have. No campaign co-op, no Forge, not enough multiplayer maps. We're still greatly lacking in environmental variety or in-world storytelling, like we saw in the reveal trailer. There's still a ton of fan favorite characters we want to see return. There's still no mission replay, like that's just ridiculous. No infection, no firefight, no juggernaut, no invasion. The theater's broken, the custom games are broken, the progression system sucks, there's no playable elites, the armor coatings are limited to certain cores, the player collision's broken, there's nerfed physics interactions, there aren't even any of the fan favorite features that they came up with for MCC, like say the custom games browser. It's difficult to see people's service records, it's difficult to mute people in game. Oh yeah, and maps, and yeah, more maps. You see, when you look at all these things that are missing and broken, that's not even to mention the things that are just bad, like the UI, for example. So for as fun as Infinite was, you can't really say it's gotten a fair shake to succeed when it's still falling short in so many parameters that aren't even really related to the gameplay. It seems like 343 is almost regressing in many ways. I mean, MCC was famed for being broken, but how many of those issues that I listed above did MCC have? Perhaps some of them, but most of them I'd say no. There was an expectation after, 6 years of waiting that Infinite would be a complete game, that they'd somehow take the learnings from MCC and use that in their, new, big, hyped release. But apparently not, it's going to be the same. It's going to take, I'll just guess 5 years to get good.
This year was supposed to be at least a little bit different. We were supposed to be getting a lot more for the game, and also a Halo TV show, something to help make the wait a little bit more easier for Halo fans. Yeah, I don't really think it made the wait any easier. If anything, it probably made things a bit more frustrating. So I guess the big question is, what is the deal with the Halo TV show?
Hey guys, this is Foot of the Ghost, and I'm going to just quickly jump in here to talk about the Halo TV series. Quick thanks to Kiv for bringing me on. Funnily enough, it's almost impossible to critique it or talk about it because CBS have a history of taking people's videos down. Angry Joe Show had tons of issues with CBS, blocking their videos, and I personally have run into issues myself where they blocked and straight removed my videos from YouTube. When it comes to the Halo show itself, I don't think it's all bad, but that doesn't mean it's great either. It feels like a generic sci-fi show with a slab of Halo paint over the top. It doesn't really cater to Halo fans new or old, and if I'm being totally honest, it doesn't really stand up as a good show even by just normal TV standards. I will say it has flashes of potential mixed in with terrible decisions and frustrating storylines. For example, Chief and his obsession with taking off his helmet. I constantly see Halo fans up in arms about that, and while the Halo show is a different canon, it almost feels like the showrunners don't understand why we love the Master Chief and what we love the most about that character. And that's not to discredit Pablo Schreiber, because I actually like him as the Chief, but my main problem is with how he's been written. And probably my biggest issue with the Halo show right now is the focus on Quan. The craziest thing is that Quan got a full episode to herself, and I saw a lot of people give episode 7 a Quan out of 10, and I fully agree. That episode was the worst episode of the series because they focused on a character that actually has nothing to do with Halo, at least in the grand scheme of things. There have been good parts though, like episode 5, at least the back end of that episode was fantastic. I was really invested in the action, and I think episode 6 was quite solid as well, but all of the hype from episodes 5 and 6 was basically diminished in one episode due to Quan. Thankfully episode 8 looks a lot better, but holy crap, we just need to see no more Quan and I'll be happy. Quick thanks to Kiv for having me on, and I'll catch you all later.
So now that we have a good idea about the Halo TV show, the game, and the people who are in charge of making it all, what about the Halo community? Oh no, that's not good at all. I'm gonna tag out everyone. I'm not gonna do this one. Lappa, can you help me out here, mate?
Hello there guys, girls, ladies and gentlemen, it's not your favourite degenerate, Lepaladin. So, Halo's community, huh? Well, this is going to be a completely non-controversial and perfectly acceptable point of discussion, right? Right? It's hard to not talk about Halo's current state without involving the community. In recent months, we've seen Infinite drop the ball hard when it comes to its player base, going from a peak of around 200,000 players on Steam alone to barely 10% of that at the worst of times. It remains to be seen if Infinite will ever regain that massive lost population, but I doubt it'll be happening anytime soon. Take a quick look on r/Halo and you'll see the overwhelming majority of people there have given up on the game. The discussions on Twitter aren't much better either, either and arguably the core pillars of the community, the Halo content creators on YouTube, don't look to be having the best time. Ubernick seems to be trying to convince us, or maybe himself, that the game is still fun. Late Night Gaming has started to cover the Call of Duty games more often than not in his most popular ongoing series, and speaking of Call of Duty, Hidden Xperia, good on him, has started branching out and talking about other games like COD Zombies, Metal Gear, etc. So you know it's looking grim when your boy ditches Halo to talk about zombies. We've got Vanguard to thank for that. Fucking piece of shit god awful. In my first ever video on YouTube, shameless plug, I know, I talked a lot about how Halo is the sum of its parts, and it's no one game mode that makes Halo what it is. It's the combination of all these factors like campaign, matchmaking and multiplayer, custom games, Forge, Firefight, theater, etc. that make up Halo's community. And like any well-structured building, when the columns and supports aren't looked after and maintained, the building is going to crumble. The folks who play Halo primarily for its campaign and love the story, the characters, and the universe aren't being catered to because the campaign on its own is $60 and you're paying the same for less. No co-op is just the start. The campaign feels like such a disjointed experience from the rest of the game, and almost like 343 are just one and doneing it. The only love it's getting in the new season is that the tank gun and pelican glitches are being removed. Awesome. There goes like all of Infinite's speedrunning community. You can't even replay missions for God's sakes. For the folks who love Halo's multiplayer and its competitive aspect, there's only the one competitive playlist with no choice in what game modes you want to play, and the ranked system is scuffed. Not to mention that there is nothing satisfying about the progression. You're going through the motions and ticking off a checklist of stupid stuff to do in order to rank up. And once you finish the battle pass, that's it. There's no replayability, no inheritor rank or SR152 or equivalent. You're just stuck. If you're tired of getting shat on in the comp scene and want to relax a bit, you can always send some people invites or search for a game in the customs browser, right? No. For the casuals who prefer Halo for its fun game modes like Fiesta, Big Team Battle, or custom games, I hope you enjoy those same 4 BTB maps over and over and over and over again, because that's all you're getting. In custom games, they're dead and buried because another column isn't there to prop them up. Forge being absent means that the creative members of the community have nothing. All those channels dedicated to covering cool custom maps and game modes, an entire division of free exposure for Halo and its weird and wacky side just isn't there. You like making machinima? Well, have fun with the god-awful tools that 343 supplied you. And Firefight, well, my man's just got left out in the rain. All these columns, these pillars of Halo's community have decayed over time, and the people in them have been pushed away because of 343's inability to keep them alive. The community is reacting with frustration or toxicity because they feel like they've been cheated or outright forgotten. And it's not like this was the first time this happened either. It's baffling to me that out of all the criticisms leveled at Halo 5, 343 didn't learn from the one key takeaway, which was content. This has led to infighting within these community groups, and barely anyone can agree to disagree anymore. You're either staunchly against something or it's the best thing since sliced bread. This Anakin Skywalker mentality of,
if you're not with me, then you're my enemy,
has been perpetuated by social media platforms like Twitter, or forced people into echo chambers to only hear the opinion they want to hear about Halo and aren't opening up to a broader range of opinions. And all I have to say is this: we all love Halo. We all love to hate Halo as well sometimes. So can't we just love it or love to hate it together, you know? When I see people attacking specific figureheads within the community, whether that be content creators or certain developers, it makes me cringe a little bit, because they're probably not the ones you should be pointing the finger at. Those devs are doing what some fat cat in a money-lined office is telling them to do, or they're truthfully reacting to the bad state that Infinite is in, or they're being genuine in their expression of joy. And I mean, hey, if you're enjoying Halo Infinite right now, good for you. I wish I could too. If you have constructive criticism to level at the game, go for it. It seems like 343 are trying to listen to most of it, but when people resort to detestable forms of abuse like death threats over a fucking video game, that's where the line gets drawn. I don't think a majority of the Halo community is to blame for how they're reacting, in some respects. I don't blame the content creators for jumping ship, and I don't blame folks like Ubernick, sorry for calling him out earlier in the video. I actually love your vids, man, you're awesome. But thank you for keeping the passion alive, because as Halo fans, that's all we can do. Try to keep the enthusiasm there, and wait. Again.
So that is a comprehensive look at the major areas of Halo and its community. I want to give a special thank you to all the boys. You can find links to their channels in the description. They all make amazing, awesome content, and they are absolutely phenomenal YouTubers. So please go subscribe to them if you have not already. And I really do think that the Aussie pentagram of Halo YouTubers could happen if we manage to get Mint Blitz here. It'll be like 5 Aussie YouTubers will start the fucking round table Halo Avengers-esque sort of thing. That would be pretty interesting. Maybe that's probably just dreaming a bit too much, but on another note, if you haven't already, make sure that you drop a like and subscribe, because it's all part of the great journey. So let me know what your thoughts are about all of this and Halo and its community in the comment section down below. I've been Kiv, and I'll see you all on the next one.